Hello, my name is Mrs. Dobrinsky. I'm the library media specialist for the Sayreville Middle School. Today, I will be talking about the summer reading assignment for incoming 7th grade students. The goal of the Sayreville Middle School summer reading program is to provide independent practice of reading comprehension skills and to foster a lifelong love of reading for our students. The focus for the 7th grade titles is how setting impacts conflict. As you read, you're encouraged to complete the bookmark on page 3 of the packet to help recall details in discussions that will take place in September. Students should be completely done reading their selection by Friday, September 10th, 2021. Students are asked to read one of the recommended titles for their grade level that they will enter in September. There is no log nor project to be completed. Just simply read using the skills learned in English LAL this past year. You'll be jotting down information on this sheet, page 3 of your packet. Students may find many of these titles online. You can order them online at your local bookstore and at the Sayreville Public Library. I included the link for the Sayreville Public Library in this presentation. Additionally, with the Hoopla app or eLibrary New Jersey, through the Overdrive app, your child can download these titles to their devices. Here is the link for eLibrary New Jersey, Overdrive. All right. The titles this year for the summer reading for incoming 7th grade students are, our fiction selections are Cinder, Travel Team, Al Capone Does My Shirts, Whitebird, A Wonder Story, Marcus Vega Doesn't Speak Spanish, Shine, Boy, Tales of Childhood, and The Great Fire. So you're going to select one of those titles. All right, let's get started. I'd like to do some book talk presentations on the selections so you can get a little feel of what the books are and see if hopefully one of them is something that you are interested in. All right, I'm going to start off with Cinder. Cinder is the first in the Lunar Chronicle series. It is a science fiction fairy tale, twist set in the future. The character, obviously, Cinder, takes place after, Cinderella, and it's based on that fairy tale, but it has that science fiction twist. Cinder is a gifted cyborg, so she's part robot and part human. And she works in this stall. She runs a little stall, a shop, in this big marketplace set in the future in a city called New Beijing. And she has a mechanical foot, which you can see right here on the cover of the book. And she's known throughout the marketplace as a gifted mechanic. She likes to tinker with things, so she likes to play around with things and figure out how they work. And that started with her foot, actually, here. When she was younger, she has this mechanical foot. And as she grew older, the mechanical foot no longer fit her body. As she grew and got taller and changed, the foot no longer and leg no longer fit. So she needed a new one. She needed it to be replaced. But sadly, she has a stepmother, just like the Cinderella story, who was not very nice to her. And the mean stepmother would not replace this foot for Cinder. So she kind of had to figure it out on her own. And she started to, tinker with it and try to fix it. And she was able to do that. But she still needs to get it replaced, but she was doing the best that she could. And as she started to do that, she learned how to fix things, robots and droids and different things like that. So she's running this stall in this marketplace, and of course enters a handsome prince one day, and he is looking for somebody to fix this android that he needs for a ball. They're having a ball. So you're seeing the comparisons here between the Cinderella fairy tale. And at first they don't get along. There's not a connection there or anything. That develops a little bit more in the story, their friendship. But, we find out a little bit more about Cinder. She has that stepmother that I was talking about. She has two stepsisters. One stepsister she doesn't get along with. And then the other stepsister, she does have a sisterly relationship with. Her name is Pearl. Meanwhile, remember, this is science fiction. Earth's governments are urging the prince to marry this woman known as the Lunar Queen. And the Lunar Queen would form this alliance between Earth and the moon. And some believe that the lunar people have this cure for this mysterious, deadly plague that's taking over New Beijing. It's sweeping over the city. And Pearl, the stepsister, is affected by this plague, and also the prince's father is stricken by it. As revenge, Cinder's stepmother volunteers Cinder for plague research, which unlocks secrets about Cinder, the lunar people, and things that have just been buried for years, these secrets that nobody knew about. We find out more about Cinder and about her life. I would definitely say check out this book if you like science fiction, if you like, fairy tales with a twist, if you like to read series. This is the first book in the Lunar Chronicles series. So many times students will read this over the summer, and then when they come into school next year, and they would like to read the rest of the books in the series. So we do have the rest of the books in the Lunar Chronicles series if you are interested in our library media center. So I would definitely say check out Cinder. I loved it. It's a great read, and I think it would be wonderful for summer reading. All right, so our second selection is Travel Team by Mike Lupica. Mike Lupica is a sports fiction writer. He's a sports writer, but he also writes several books that we have in our library collection, sports fiction books. He is very popular, New York Times bestselling author. If you had Mrs. Fallon this year as your social studies teacher, she loves this book. This is one of her favorite books, Travel Team. So Travel Team is a story about a young boy, a 12-year-old boy named Danny Walker. And Danny loves to play basketball. He is trying out for this team. Basketball is his life. He's trying out for this team, and he doesn't get selected for the team. All right. He gets cut from this 7th grade team. And the reason they say that he gets cut is because he's too short. But is that really the true reason? There's hints that something else is going on there. And then we find out a little bit more about Danny's life and his backstory. His parents are separated, and he lives with his mom, and his dad kind of comes in and out of town, not as much as Danny would like. And his dad does come back into town, and we find out a little bit more about their relationship. Danny's dad was a famous basketball player, really gifted, could have been in the NBA, and he got hurt, so he was unable to play. So Danny gets cut from this 7th grade team. They say the reason is because he's too short. There's hints that that's not really what's happening. All this happens to Danny. His father, that NBA career was cut short by the auto accident. And then we find out that Danny and his dad and the other kids who were cut from this team decide to make up a new team. All right. So they're going to make up a new basketball team. He's ready to, kind of have a relationship with his dad. He's excited for this to happen, but unfortunately it doesn't turn out as well as he would like, until, as we get further into the story. We see what happens when Danny, really has this dream of basketball. He just has a love for basketball, and he never wants to give it up. And that kind of rides throughout the story. So I would definitely, if you are a sports fiction reader, if you like Mike Lupica, again, we have several books by Mike Lupica in our library. If you've read him before, this might be a choice for you. Travel Team by Mike Lupica. All right, Al Capone Does My Shirts is a historical fiction selection. It is a Newbery Honor Medal winner. So each year there is one Newbery Honor winning book that gets a gold seal and medal. And then there are a few honor books. So the year that this book came out, it was recognized as a Newbery Honor winning book. So Again, it's also a series. So if you like series, this might be something that you would like to pick up if you like historical fiction. It's a story about a boy named Moose Flanagan. And Moose loves to play baseball with his friends and just has a nice, good time and really is into just hanging out with his friends. And then suddenly he has to move. All right. His dad has a new job. He takes a job as an electrician and a prison guard on an island, called Alcatraz off of San Francisco, in the San Francisco Bay area. So this is in California. Alcatraz is a high security prison. It's not an active prison now, but when this took place in 1935, it was a high prison where they would put serious criminals there. One of the criminals who was being held there, one of the prisoners, is a man by the name of Al Capone. Al Capone was a famous, notorious felon and gangster, and did many things. He eventually got charged with tax evasion, and they sent him to Alcatraz. So it's an island. The prison is on an island. And if you go to San Francisco, you can visit Alcatraz. You can take it's like I said, it's no longer an active prison, but you can visit it and see. Many people tried to escape from Alcatraz. There was actually a movie called Escape from Alcatraz. So Moose and his family, moved to Alcatraz because what happens is if your parents work, prison guard, electrician, if your parent is a doctor or a cook or something, working on Alcatraz, that's their job, then your family lives there. So it's kind of weird. There's one side of the island is prisoners and, these high security prisoners that they really have to keep under control. And then on the other side of the island is these families and these people who work there. So, and their children and spouses and things like that. So kind of strange, but Moose and his family moved to Alcatraz because his dad gets the job there. He's not happy about the move. He doesn't want to move. Like I said, he plays baseball. He loves hanging out with his friends. He's not really interested in moving down there, but they have to move. Moose has to deal with his classmates, and he also clashes with his mother over the care of his sister. He has a sister named Natalie who's autistic. But in 1935, they did not recognize it. They didn't realize. They knew she had a learning disability, but they didn't know it was autism. It's not like today where teachers and, we have programs and ways to help students who have autism, and we know how to teach them better. That wasn't the case in 1935. So Natalie really has to go to this special school. So in 1935, this condition has not been identified, and Moose's family was encouraged to have Natalie placed in what they called an institution, rather than, which wouldn't really help her because she didn't need to be institutionalized, but that was the recommendation, rather than keeping her at home. So Moose is really the only one who can kind of reach Natalie and has a way of connecting with Natalie, but rather than sending her to an institution, he wants to, send her to a special school that will help her. So he enlists the help of Al Capone, this famous prisoner on Alcatraz Island, to help him try to find a place for his sister and help his sister. If you like historical fiction, if you want to find a little bit more out about San Francisco, Bay Area, Alcatraz, the history, Al Capone, this is a great story. I think you would enjoy it. Al Capone does my shirts. Shine on is the catchphrase of 12-year-old Piper, who was our main character here. And Piper's television hero, Nellie, uses that shine on. So Piper knows that, people are born to shine on, but she doesn't really believe that. She just feels like she's not one of those people to be somebody who's a shining star, who stands out. The fact has never been clearer since her dad's new job has landed them both at this preppy, posh private school. So where everybody seems to be the best at something, and where Piper does not fit in. She doesn't fit in this new school. Find out what happens in this novel if you liked the author of Mr. Lemoncello's library series. This is also the same author, so you might enjoy this story. It's called Shine. Marcus Vega doesn't speak Spanish. I just actually finished reading this book because it's new to our list this year. So Marcus Vega's father left their family when Marcus was a young boy. And he has this obsession of finding his father, like what happened to his father. And he wants to, find his absentee father and actually really find why he left their family. To help out his overworked single mom who's raising him, Marcus makes money at the middle school by doing this protective services of kids from the school bully and other troubles. Marcus gets suspended from school for punching the school bully. And then his mom decides, we need a break from where we are, and we're going to take a family trip to Puerto Rico to kind of regroup, meet our relatives, and, meet some of his father's relatives and try to regroup from the path that Marcus was going on. So while they're in Puerto Rico, Marcus is determined to find his father. He wants to find his father, and he'll, do whatever he has to, whatever cost, to find some answers why his dad left, because this is just really a big hole in his life right now, and he wants to find out the reason why. So he's determined to find his father and get the answers that he's been seeking at any cost. Travel along with Marcus as he uncovers the true meaning of family, and he learns a little Spanish on the way. Marcus Vega doesn't speak Spanish. Okay, White Bird is our graphic novel selection. A graphic novel, again, is a novel that has pictures, may look like similar to a comic book. It's a great way to get the story across. I actually love graphic novels. There wasn't too familiar with them when I started at the middle school, but now I see them. It's kind of like they take the story and they, step it up a notch, and it makes it even more wonderful with these wonderful pictures and illustrations to show you the story. So if you like graphic novels, White Bird in graphic novel format might be something that you are interested in. So White Bird tells the story of Julian's grandmother, Grandmere, whose name is Sarah. And when she was a young Jewish girl, she was hidden by a family in Nazi-occupied France, French village during World War II. And how this boy, who, she kind of shunned and her classmates shunned, ended up helping her and being her savior, and then eventually her best friend. So this tells Grandmere's story. She's telling it to her grandson, Julian. It always takes courage to be kind, but in those days, such kindness could cost you everything. That was the quote that she said. So think about that. It always takes courage to be kind, but in those days, such kindness could cost you everything. So that's an interesting kind of thought to think about. Beautiful, like I said, illustrations, brings the story to life and helps you understand the past and World War II and what was happening during this time period in Europe. Again, if you liked Wonder, I think you will enjoy White Bird. So check it out. Okay, Boy by Roald Dahl is a nonfiction selection. It could be considered an autobiography. He talks about his life growing up in England and his stories. One of the most famous chapters in this book is called The Great Mouse Plot. And I always like to read that in the library when students come down, because I just think it's just a great read to share with somebody to listen to. It was actually in a movie called You've Got Mail. The main character owns a bookshop, and she reads this to a group of students during like a story time. So I'm going to read a little bit to you from Boy, and this is called The Great Mouse Plot. So it's a section of this book. and see if you like it. If you like it, then you might want to read the rest of the book. Her name was Mrs. Pratchett. She was a small, skinny old hag with a mustache on her upper lip and a mouth as sour as a green gooseberry. She never smiled, and she never greeted us when we came in. The only time she spoke was when she said things like, "I'm watching you, so keep your thieving hands off of them chocolates," or "I don't want you here, just looking around. Either show me your money or get out." Mrs. Pratchett owned the candy shop that we went to. But by far the most lonesome thing about Mrs. Pratchett was the filth that clung around her. Her apron was gray and greasy. Her blouse had bits of breakfast all over it, toast crumbs and tea stains and splotches of dried egg yolk. It was her hands, however, that disturbed me the most. They were disgusting. They were black with dirt and grime. They were black with dirt and grime. They looked as though they had been putting black ink in pens all day long. It was those very hands and greasy fingers that were putting our lollies into packets or holding our ice cream cones. She never used a tissue. She never heard of health laws, and hers was the only shop where we lived that we had a choice to go and get our craving for something sweet. The mere sight of those grimy hands with those black fingernails digging into the jar of our treats would cause a starving tramp to go running from the shop. But not us. Our lollipops were our lifeblood. We would have put up with far worse to get them. We simply stood and watched with sullen silence while those disgusting old woman hands stirred around inside the jars, trying to pull out our candy. My four friends and I had come across a loose floorboard at the back of the classroom one day, and we pried it open with the blade of our pocket knife. We discovered a big hollow space underneath. This, we decided, would be our secret hiding place for sweets and other treasures. Every afternoon, when the last lesson was over, the five of us would wait until the classroom had emptied. Then we would lift up the floorboard and examine our secret hoard. So he talks a little bit about the candy shop, and then he talks about in school, this was back in the beginning of the 20th century, they had a school and they had these floorboards, so wooden boards on the were their floor, and sometimes the floorboards would pop up. They would come up a little bit. The nails would be loosened. So they found this one loose floorboard, and what they would do, Rawl and his friends, they would pull up the floorboard and they would put their secret treasures down there, their candies, their little toys, things probably that they weren't supposed to have in school, but they brought to school anyway. And then they would hide it, and then at the end of the day, they would pull it back open and get their things and leave for the day. So that's what he's talking about. Well, one day when I lifted it up, we found a dead mouse lying among our treasures. It was an exciting discovery. My friend took it by its tail and waved it in front of our faces. "Ooh, what should we do with it?" he cried. "Ugh, it stinks," someone shouted. "Throw it out the window, quick." Hold on, I said. "Don't throw it away." My friends hesitated. They all looked at me. When writing about oneself, one must strive to be truthful. Truth is more important than modesty. I must tell you, therefore, that it was I, and I alone, who came up with a plan for the great and daring mouse plot. We all have our moments of greatness, of brilliance and glory, and this was mine. Why don't we, I said, slip it into one of Mrs. Pratchett's jar of sweets? Then, when she puts her dirty hands in to grab a handful of candy, she'll grab a dead, stinky mouse instead. My four friends stared at me in wonder. Then, as the sheer genius of the plot began to sink in, they all started to grin. They slapped me on the back. They cheered me and danced around the classroom. "We'll do it today," they cried. "We'll do it on the way home. You had the plan, so you can be the one to put the mouse in the jar." My friend handed me the mouse. I put it in my trouser pocket. Then the five of us left school, crossing the village green and heading for the sweet shop. We were all jazzed up. We felt like a gang of desperados setting out to rob a train or blow up the sheriff's office. "Make sure you put it in the jar that's used often," said one of my friends. I know, I'll put it in the gobstopper jar. The gobstopper jar is never behind the counter. I have a penny, my friend said, so I'll ask for one sherbet sucker and one bootlace. And while she turns around to get them, you'll slip the dead, stinky mouse quickly into the gobstopper jar. Thus, everything was planned. It was all arranged. We were strutting as a little as we entered into the shop. We were so proud of ourselves. We were the victors now, and Mrs. Pratchett was the victim. She stood behind the counter, and her small pig eyes watched us suspiciously as we came forward. One sherbet sucker, please, said my friend, holding out his penny. I kept to the back of the group, and when I saw Mrs. Pratchett turn away for a couple of seconds to get that sherbet sucker out of the box, I lifted the heavy glass of the gobstopper jar and I dropped the mouse in. Then I replaced the lid as silently as possible so she couldn't hear. My heart was thumping like mad, and my hands were all sweaty. One bootlace, please, I heard him saying, and when I turned around, I saw Mrs. Pratchett holding the bootlace with her filthy fingers. I don't want all of you tromping in here, she said. Now get out of here, beat it. As soon as we were outside, we broke into the run. Did you do it? They shouted at me. Of course I did. Well done. What a super show. I felt like a hero. I was a hero. I felt very popular. So that's a little excerpt of Boy called The Great Mouse Plot. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that may be one of your selections. Again, a great book if you like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Witches, Matilda, many of Roald Dahl's books. You can kind of find a little bit about him and growing up and some of the stories. You know, you can make the connection, obviously, to the candy shop and the Gobstoppers, to his Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Enjoy. All right, the last book I'm going to talk about is called The Great Fire by Jim Murphy. It is a Newbery Honor winner also, the year that it came out. It talks about the Great Fire of 1871, was one of the worst disasters in the city of Chicago in American history. Overnight, this flourishing, huge city of Chicago was transformed into a smoldering wasteland. The damage was so profound that few people believed that the city could ever rise up again. It has personal accounts of the actual survivors, together with the carefully, researched part of Chicago, why this fire happened, why it spread so quickly, the lack of having a fire department who came and responded quickly. Supposedly, the urban legend, which was not true, but at the time they believed it. They thought Mrs. O'Leary, because Chicago was urban in the center, and then the outskirts was rural or farmlands. So they felt, and that's where the fire started, in the rural areas. So the rumor was, or the urban legend was, that Mrs. O'Leary was a farmer's wife, and she had this cow, and this cow tipped over this lantern, and that started the fire, that sparked the fire, and that's how this horrific fire spread throughout. That was not true, but that was believed for many years. Poor Mrs. O'Leary's cow got blamed for this great fire. But it does reveal, that in its deepest despair, how, you count on other people, how the human spirit triumphed, and how the people of Chicago really, had the strength, the personal strength to rebuild this city again. And now Chicago, as we know, is a great city and has so much in there. But at the time when the city was destroyed in 1871, they didn't think it was going to be rebuilt. They didn't think it could bounce back. There was a terrible drought the summer before. This happened in October, this fire. The summer before, there was a terrible drought, so there was little water. Many of the buildings obviously were made out of wood, and wood burns quickly. There was Chicago's known as the Windy City, so the embers from the fire would blow from one area to the other, and it would spread very quickly that way. Also, there was a lacquer or a paint on a lot of the wood buildings and structures that was very flammable and also caused a fire. Plus, the area that they started the fire was, as I said, a rural area. So the people who were living in the center of the city or the urban part of the city were kind of like, that's kind of over there and we don't have to worry about it. It's not in our area. So they kind of delayed sending any help to that area, which is very sad. And delayed sending firefighters and fire trucks to not fire trucks, fire carriages to that area. So that was a few of the reasons why the fire spread so quickly. To do with the weather, had to do with the drought, the buildings, and different things like that. So if you like history, if you want to find a little bit more about this Great Chicago Fire of 1871, this might be a great choice for you. Again, the pictures are great. They have actual survivors' accounts in there and people who witnessed this and what happened. So it's very true to life. And again, Jim Murphy won the Newbery Honor the year that it came out. All right, so those are our selections. Again, you are to pick one of the selections that I talked about. I hope the book talks and the readings helped you a little bit more as far as picking which book you would like to read this summer. Again, stay healthy, stay safe, keep on reading. If you have any questions, please email me. I will get back to you. Have a wonderful summer, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.